We are live with another day talking about systems and technology and all the things that have to do with systems and technology. And we're talking about forensics today and how you can actually learn forensics. And because you can learn forensics from home, and I've been getting a lot of questions because I get questions about this all the time. How do you get a forensics based career, and how do you learn forensics in the first place? And so I guess a lot of things about forensics. So like when we talk about forensics in general, forensics has to do with, producing evidence to like for some general purpose or use case. So I guess Jordan, what would you say is like an example of like forensics if we're talking about like home-based forensics? Because since you work, from home and things like that, and what kind of forensics would you say you could learn from home, or what kinds of things can we learn from systems at home?
Well, I mean, you can search logs and learn about basically how to backtrack data and like find vulnerabilities in your system. So there's lots of different opportunities.
And when we're talking about like forensics, just like some of these things that you're seeing on this screen over here, just sitting here refreshing, because at home you can build technology yourself, and that's one of the things that we do is we have built these dashboards for being able to do investigation for home or business purposes, whether it's development, all these good things. But when you're trying to figure out like how can you get the kinds of skills that someone would need to work in a forensic space or a forensics field, it's important to know like what do you even do when you do in forensics. And I have a video that is one of my most watched videos about how do you what do people do in forensics and what's it like to work in forensics. And it's usually kind of chaotic, usually pretty frantic, and usually there's something bad that happened where someone's like, we need evidence for this thing, or we need these kinds of results like now within this very, I guess, limited short amount of time. So I guess maybe there's like a better way to explain that, but it's really all around producing and providing some form of legal evidence, right, Jordan? I guess like, because I mean, I've done a lot of forensics cases, and it's really just that. Someone says, I want you to provide this specific type of evidence, and then it's up to you to figure out how to build and produce that type of evidence for whatever said situation or scenario that you're trying to get into.
You're just trying to reconstruct the criminal activity that took place, essentially. So
yeah, and that's a good thing to outline, because something that Jordan commented on is like recreate basically behaviors. And when we're talking about recreating behaviors, we're talking about taking these lines and these graphs and this stuff that's going on over here and turning this into a story about what an assailant or some sort of criminal, or maybe not even a criminal, it could just be us trying to get some evidence for something, who knows, it might not necessarily even be that bad of a thing. It could just be that something was damaged and we just need to get evidence to make sure for like insurance, for example.
sure, or trying to figure out how I don't know. There's a lot of different things you would potentially want to collect evidence for, or just like determine if a crime was even committed against you. Maybe you have like a balance that isn't adding up correctly, and you want to figure out, well, is this just an accounting error, or is somebody stealing from us, or so it can help you determine what is going on.
And it's oftentimes, I guess it really depends on who you're working with. It could be, you could be doing forensics for banks, you could be doing forensics for insurance companies, you could be doing like working in claims. Technically, if you're working in claims, you're doing forensics type of work and stuff like that, and producing evidence, especially if you're producing, evidence around certain things. Now, if you're working in forensics to the capacity of, breaches, I guess that's a whole nother facet of the industry, because breaches that goes into like criminology, and so in that case it would be specifically like criminals and like hackers. I guess like there's hackers, technically I'm a hacker, there's good hackers and bad hackers. Hacker is just a term for someone who uses things in a way that it wasn't necessarily originally intended to be used for. So if
and hacking does not imply criminality, so
that's right.
We want to make that distinction.
Exactly.
Yeah. like you're saying, there's good hackers and bad hackers, and illegal versus legal, perfectly legal hacking. So
That's right. It's like, are things being used appropriately? Are things being abused? Are things being used in a way that's malicious? It really comes down to, because hacking doesn't imply if something's malicious or not. It just implies that there's some hacking involved. It could be that you're repurposing a server into a new type of server. Okay, great. Maybe it's for business. Then there you go. That's not malicious at all. But if you're trying to figure out like how can I just start learning forensics type things at home, how can I learn this stuff? Honestly, you can do things like learning how to set up home backups, which that teaches you disaster recovery skills. You could build your own home NAS with something like Longhorn. Like right here, this is just showing a NAS, and this is also a cloud. So this is showing like multiple computers where it shows three symbolizing three systems working together to create one backup volume or one backup server, however have you. But that's one thing you can learn from home, and you're like, okay, how can I build some skill? These are valuable skills if you know how to build redundant storage, things like that. Learning things like high availability at home, things that you can learn with Kubernetes and Docker. And then also, like, let's say that you just decide to start playing around with systems at home. We work with Raspberry Pis and things like that, and anyone who's seen our stuff at this point, like we have some of these new systems that we're going to be talking about more that we've been working on, which aren't all that different from the last systems we were working on, but we're expanding what we're working on and our system production, because like data science, that's stuff that you can just do at home, like with either professional devices and systems like what we produce, or even just like, I don't know, go get a Raspberry Pi and start tinkering around with that, where learn how to set up your own images, learn how to set up your own little SD cards or solid state drives or whatever you're trying to do. You can learn data science at home just getting a whole bunch of hardware. It doesn't have to be Raspberry Pis either. It could be laptops, and we've talked about that a number of times on this channel. But when you have systems, you can start doing things like modding. You can like play games or mod software, and if you start modding software, there's a guy who actually made like $10,000 for modding Grand Theft Auto, and he's just a modder. This is recent. And so like you can actually go and do things like mod in video games, and if you figure out certain things, you can learn how to at least get noticed, even if you're not going to like get $10,000 like this one modder who probably very talented, has done a lot of things. You don't just randomly wake up one day and then know how to do something that the GTA Grand Theft Auto team is going to be like, wow, I can't believe you did that. No one just randomly figures out how to do that overnight.
fix like a deep-seated problem that they left in their video game that they didn't figure out how to fix themselves. So
yeah, exactly. And it's like you as a gamer can do your own forensics on the game you're playing, and if you send developers and companies like valuable improvements, that's you can produce mods and things where there are other stories where people got hired because they created mods for a game that were valuable, and people were like, "Wow, people hire modders." This is just true. But so we've talked about you can homebrew your own cloud, set up a bunch of Raspberry Pis at home or something. You can enter what are called bug bounty programs. And, I showed the screen earlier, which is like a little data mining screen, and that's not maybe the most exciting thing. If you're not actively trying to pay attention to like what you're data mining or what you're looking for, you might be like, I don't know what I'm looking at or why I'm looking at this. And so there has to be some form of intentionality behind just sitting and staring at data mining metrics and things like that. But still, you can learn that at home too. You can learn what's going on in your own home network and find out, whether it's good or bad. Maybe you do find that you've been hacked, and there's something you can do about it. Or maybe you haven't been hacked. But that's still forensics and forensic skills, to look at your own home network and try to identify, like, has this weird, suspicious stuff going on your own home network. You don't even have to have a job to learn this stuff. You can learn it at home. And it's not illegal to play with stuff on your own home network. Because I've had people be like, well, I need a legal way to play with real world things. Your home is a real world place. And your home, if you plug it into a modem and it has the internet is the internet. It doesn't really matter if you're connecting to the internet at home or some other location. Maybe the speeds are different. Maybe certain locations are a little different. There are little terms called geo-IP and all that stuff. But all the stuff I'm talking about, you can learn what that is. You can learn what geo-IP is. You can learn what all these terms are at home on your own stuff. And, that goes with the whole idea of there are things called bug bounties where you can actually freelance to learn forensics at home. And bug bounties are a good way to figure out hey, so I've been playing around with these stuff. I want to kind of put my skills to the test and maybe try to figure out how to do a little more and see okay, well, maybe I can make a little bit of money with some of these. And bug bounties are actually really hard. If you can get paid doing a bug bounty, even if you make $100 on one bug bounty, you probably have the skills to go work in a forensics job. And you could go over to websites like hackerone.com and you can take a look at different types of bug bounties. And there's more than just hackerone.com. You can Google bug bounties. Also on YouTube, if you go to youtube.com, there is an outstanding YouTube channel. Someone called Christy Vlad. Oh, actually, there it is. Yeah, Christy Vlad. This YouTube channel is amazing for bug bounties. If I go over to videos over here, and we just say bug bounty, check out Christy Vlad's channel. He talks a lot about bug bounties. He has, at this point, a whole lot of experience with bug bounties. And, it's a complicated thing. It's not so simple and straightforward to just start being good at these things or being able to do these things. And, you can learn from real people who've recently been learning these things and getting into this stuff. And, maybe it has been 5 years of learning coding and things like that before you start getting good at these things, or maybe not. Who knows? Everyone's different. Everyone learns at different paces. Everyone has different background knowledge to make us all learn at different paces depending on what we're trying to do in the world. But really, you can learn forensics at home. You can learn forensic skills. It's one of the things that you can also do that we've created is if you go over to hub.docker.com, and I guess I can link this at some point, but you just go over to hub.docker.com, and if you type Athena 0, or if you just type my YouTube channel, just NATO as code. So you go to my YouTube channel, you can find the Athena 0 node right here, which is something that I recently recreated. And this is actually a forensics-based tool. And you can also learn forensics at home by learning how to play with this penetration testing toolbox, which is actually an agnostic cloud brute forcer at this point. I've added a few tools, I've refined the suite a little bit, and it actually provided some guidance. So you can come over here, take a look at this, and right here it shows hide and hunt, how to play. You can click on that, and it will load how to play, and it will even tell you how to get a hold of me, which I actually need to change this email address because I have my own email address now. So my email address is now been updated on here as well. There you go. Enjoy. So I don't know why I felt the need to do that live on the session, but now everyone knows that I have my own email address now, and something that I haven't actually finished doing is I have finally created my own website, which is under construction, and in the meanwhile you can tell that she's learning forensics, so you can learn forensics too while you wait for me to construct all of this with Laura and everyone who we work with. So anyways, those are some things that you can do to start learning, forensics type things. And, if anyone does have questions about how to work with tools like Docker and things like that, that's something that maybe that's a whole nother rabbit hole that you can go down. But hopefully this gives people a little bit of some direction, because people are like, well, how do I start getting some of these skills? And so let's roadmap, how do we turn just building some skills into a career, because that's the other thing that we talked about a little bit in the past is, separately, how do you build skills, and separately, how you build a career with skills, because they're two different things. So I guess, Jordan, how would you say, like, if you're thinking about someone trying to translate their skills into a career, because it's kind of a confusing thing, especially, like, I mean, you do this kind of work, it's rather entrepreneurial and stuff like that. Someone could go get like a normal job and contract somewhere, or they could try to freelance or whatever. But how would you say, like, how does someone convert all of this into an actual career where this is basically what they do all day every day, trying to figure out like how to do these things?
Well, I mean, I guess that depends on the pace that you're trying to go at, but I think if you're just trying to build towards a future career, then yeah, I mean, anything that you can do just to build the skills. Everybody starts at the beginning at some point. Some of us were at the beginning a lot further behind us than others. But so just making sure that you're working towards like building something. So I mean, play around with the security on your router, figure out how to like punch holes in it if you have a firewall, like figure out how to SSH through your firewall, figure out I don't know, whatever, just any of these things. Figure out what security vulnerabilities you have on your home network, what are security vulnerabilities on your personal computer, because basically, I mean, forensics is data science. It's just a particular branch of data science. So any of those data science skills that you build will help you towards forensics in the future if that's what you want to do. And alternatively, any of those skills you build could help you in a lot of other information technologies as well. So if it turns out that forensics isn't for you, well, maybe the skills that you build will translate into something that you will enjoy. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, I think that's a good insight, because we explain things in different ways, and you have good explanations, and then coming from like similar places, it's like I have a lot of the same things. It's like tinker with things, play around with stuff, start with whatever's closest to you first, because there's so many different things all over the place. Like, yeah, you could go buy some course, and that's not a bad idea per se, especially like some folks have more access to resources than others. If you have access to resources and you can get classes and things like that, whether it's through a job, through a family agreement, through some scholarship, or a sport you play, it doesn't matter. Different people are doing different things in life where they have different access to resources. So I'm not going to say like don't go take a class, but if I wouldn't say go out of your way to spend a ton of money necessarily on something that you're not really sure about, when you can start with like what's closest to you. Even just jumping into like YouTube, like anyone watching this right now, there have been plenty of people who have literally just come and just watched my YouTube channel and then gone and watched a bunch of other YouTube channels, and now they have full-time jobs and full-time careers working in, whether it be there are even folks who, from watching my YouTube channel, came and helped out and volunteered with us, because you can volunteer. We've had volunteers who came and helped us out last year in our early phases of building our Olympiad platform that we're still working on and developing and growing and preparing for a new launch. We've had volunteers come in, help us out, had no idea what's going on. I just pointed them in the right direction, and now they're working at, either companies that I've worked at in the past, or companies that they found on their own. And, that's not like a one-time occurrence, and that's not an accident either. People look at, pay attention to people getting their own experience. Well, you can volunteer. Like, and if people are like, where can I volunteer? I don't know, go to open source communities.
just ask people. Like, find
Yeah.
something that you enjoy and ask them, you know, is there something I can do to help you?
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can do.
It's so true, and you'd be shocked. Like, it might seem like, oh man, I bet that person's so busy and would never talk to me. And I mean, I admit there's a degree of that when you get really busy. Cause
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
mean, depending on who it is in particular, you know, but
yeah, but talk to everyone, you know, because it's like,
yeah, it's always worth a shot, and most people will give you at least, you know, some of their time. And if you prove that you're worth more, then they'll probably give you more.
yeah, exactly. And you know, if someone gives me a good reason to talk to them, I'm gonna talk to them.
Sure, absolutely. Another thing I'd like to add, you know, kind of going back to your, I mean, personal interest and you know, being willing to go out and like find your own way. When it comes to like kind of like circling back to you talking about taking classes, I think if you want to take classes and you want to get certifications or whatever it is, you know, those are always great. But, you know, definitely do some groundwork beforehand and make sure that that is something that you want to do, and like try and play around with it a little bit before you take the class. And if you can't like find it within yourself to want to actually learn about it before you get in the class, then it's probably not going to be something for you, right? Like, so don't spend a bunch of money on whatever it is. So I think that's always a good strategy if you're like getting ready to go into some sort of education, is try and learn a little bit what you can, basics first. And if it is something that really sparks interest and joy in you, then like go for it, you know, then it's worth spending the money. But if not, you know, then you can save yourself a lot of time, hassle, money, heartache, whatever, if you kind of go through some of the initial steps and realize, okay, this is not something that I actually am that interested in.
Oh, totally. I hope my voice isn't echoing. I feel like I might have been doing the whole stream with my voice out. Actually, I don't know. Maybe not. Test. Let's find out.
I haven't noticed anything, but I don't know.
Actually,
I can't hear the
test.
I don't hear the stream necessarily, so.
Test. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm not echoing. Never mind. I'm over